Okay, I think we can start the session. Sumuk, over to you.
Awesome, great. Hey folks, my name is Smook. I helped start EquityList and I work at AngelList as previously helping starting AngelList India. And now we work on this product called EquityList, which is designed to help startups manage their equity and cap table management. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the product, but this talk is mostly targeted to early stage startup founders, either pre-incorporation, during incorporation, or growing and scaling your company. And we're going to go over the basics of what you need to get an ESOP scheme off the ground and compensate your employees with equity, as well as how our tool can help you do that and more. I believe we have questions set up so you can ask questions through our tool, and we're happy to look at them either now or later. And if you have questions after the talk as well, you're always welcome to email us. So like I said, EquityList is a tool from AngelList, and AngelList is a global startup platform. We have a couple of businesses. The one that's most popular is called AngelList Talent, and it helps people find jobs at startups and startups find great talent to work with them. The second business is AngelList Venture, which helps venture capitalists around the world actually invest into companies. And the third one is Product Hunt, which recently spinned off to help startups find their customers. So if you think about these three things, these are really everything companies need to get off the ground. They need money, they need talent, and they need customers. But if we dig deeper into some of these problems, we realize that equity management is actually one of the problems that companies run into. And that's what we're working on. Specifically about AngelList Venture operates the financial infrastructure for a lot of venture capital. Our analysis shows that we're actively involved in around 51% of all high quality US seed stage deals. And in India, AngelList India is one of the most active or the most active early stage investor. So we're seeing a lot of startup activity, and we've built a startup platform as well as a lot of the financial infrastructure to power over $2.5 billion in assets, specifically in the private markets. And one problem we saw come up over and over again in our time running AngelList Venture and writing the infrastructure to power this is that equity management for companies is really complex. In the US, there's plenty of tools to help you manage this, and they're part of the US startup stack, and there's software tools and well-established practices for how you do this. But in India, we noticed that there was an opportunity to help create a new standard and create software to help Indian startups succeed. And so that's what we've done with EquityList. In this talk, we're going to go over what all the problems you run into when you're creating and running and scaling an ESOP program, and how our solutions can help you get there. Again, if you have questions, feel free to ask. We'll look through them and try to get to them. All right, so you're a founder at an early stage company, and someone has told you that you need to give equity to your employees. So this might happen through a financing round where your VCs will say, okay, as part of this financing round, we're going to need you to set up a pool of equity that you can grant your employees to incentivize them. And so that's at one point you'll need to set it up. You might set it up at the very beginning when you're creating your company, or you might be creating a new scheme to re-incentivize your employees. And as you're thinking about equity management, a lot of problems come up that you have to solve, and it can be a little overwhelming. First off, the problem you have to solve is what kind of equity do you want to grant to your employees? So there's a variety of options, including issuing options or issuing what are called share appreciation rights or stock appreciation rights or phantom stock. And in addition, if your company is formed internationally, whether you issue options from the international company or the subsidiary. And these are all questions you have to think about and answer. And we've written some content on our blog to help you answer these. And if you have more questions about the details of one of these, feel free to reach out or ask a question, and we'll try and get to it. So once you've decided what kind of equity plan you want to set up and how much of your pool you want to allocate to employee equity, then you actually have to create a formal scheme document to formalize the terms of your ESOP document. And the way you traditionally do this is you go to your company lawyer and you say, listen, I want a ESOP form scheme. Can you generate one? And they'll say sure, and they'll take a week and get back to you. And they might charge you a good sum of money just to do that. And what they're really doing is they're using a template doc and sending you back standard defaults. And then once you have done all the work to actually form the ESOP scheme by talking to your company secretary, making the appropriate filings and board resolutions to adopt it, you now have to go about creating grant letters for each employee. So that can be a lot of work because you need to explain how ESOPs work and what the terms are. For a lot of employees, the concepts are really novel, including the concept of vesting stock. And so managing that part alone takes time. Then you need to actually collect the signatures and go around and actually execute them. Again, hours of work. And then you need to come back at around year end and do audits. And so if you're managing all of this by hand, which is what we've seen a lot of companies used to do, you end up getting messy spreadsheets and you end up paying for it when you have to do your audits because it creates a lot of additional work in the future. And then the next problem is that as you've granted equity to your employees, you want them to appreciate it and see that as part of their compensation package. If you just kind of throw a document at them to sign, they may not understand the true value of it, especially as the value of your company goes up. They might not be holistically evaluating your compensation to include equity. So you need to be on top of showing employees that the grant actually has value, is a real thing, as well as share all the documents to them. And so ideally, you'd have a software dashboard to do that. But of course, it's not like you're going to write one because that's not a core problem for your company. And so you now have the state where you have a lot of employees who don't really understand the value of your equity, and you have all the management overhead of actually managing the program. And so that puts you in a bad place as well. Next, we can talk about cap tables. So you've done all the work around equity and employee grants, but now you have to manage all your other shareholders. And the two parts of equity and ESOPs, they're actually very tightly linked because every ESOP you grant has an impact on the cap table. And so you can track share ownership by building a one-off cap table on a spreadsheet if you're just at the stage of having a few founders and you just need to track simple ownership here and there. But as soon as you get more entities or you create convertible instruments, the modeling gets very complex. And if you need to create models to see what happens if you raise at this valuation, your finance team or CFO will be spending a lot of time creating one-off spreadsheets. And those one-off spreadsheets are if you share those with your investors as part of due diligence for future rounds, that creates a lot of headache for them in terms of parsing it, as well as for any financial audits as well. So managing cap tables by spreadsheet is mostly fine, but as you grow, you'll run into these problems. In addition, you have this problem of tracking documents and information at the shareholder level. And that's hard to do at a spreadsheet level because what you end up having is this like folder somewhere on someone's computer that has all the copies of share certificates, and it's not associated and it's hard to track. So having some software there would have been nice too. And then the third one is when you're scaling your company. So a lot of the like suboptimal strategies actually work when you're a small company, but they end up causing pain as you grow. And this is what a lot of our customers have run into, as when they get to the stage where they have 50 to 200 to a lot more employees, they realize that their processes break down and they really need software. Otherwise, they have to keep throwing finance people at the problem to try and triage it. And then as you raise more capital and grow your company, you often find yourself sharing sensitive documents for an M&A transaction or for investor pitch meetings. And you could solve that by paying money to a data room provider, or you would just insecurely send the documents either email or adding them in Google Drive or something like that. Similarly, you'd send investor updates, but have no idea who read them or what a good format for an investor update is. And then the same processes we talked about earlier with creating grant letters, all of that stuff breaks again at scale. We've seen a case of a company that used to have one dedicated finance person, basically to generate all the grant letters, to track down signatures, do all the accounting for their equity program. And that's not a super high value use of someone on the finance team who can help you be doing more strategic things just because the processes are broken. And then in addition, you'll have to share these documents with a bunch of people as your team grows, and having a single source of truth there makes life a lot easier. Okay, and so given all of what I just talked about, every single point I mentioned is something that our EquityList software actually helps you manage. So it's designed to be a full stack cap table solution when you are dealing with all these problems. So as you're evaluating cap table tools to look at, you should look at whether they solve all of these problems or not for you. This includes things like having real data rooms that you can send to investors. Can you actually e-sign grants? Can you have scenario calculators for employees? All of these things. Next up, I'm going to talk about what the process is if you're just spinning up your ESOP program. So to help you get off the ground, what we've done at EquityList is we partnered with 3 top firms that specialize in ESOP or startup law, and they have created these template documents, which we think are industry leading in terms of best practices and standards. And you can choose one, and actually you can go through it and create your own document. All you have to do is fill out a few forms, and my colleague Sahil on the call will tell you more about it. But you essentially just fill out a few things, and you get a real form back out to you. So this saves you a lot of money to start with, but in addition, it's designed to help you get really good documents just off the bat. And then we also have a lot of help content on our blog to help you understand and help your employees understand as well, if you end up giving them stock options, how they work and what things they should be looking for. Once you've got your ESOP scheme off the ground, our product helps you manage the cap table and ESOP side of it as well. And we'll go deeper into a demo in a little bit. And we do basically the end-to-end process from having an ESOP scheme to actually generating a grant letter. So we programmatically generate one that has the vesting details and all the other information on there, make it actually e-signable for the employee and the company, and give the employee all the tools they need to view the growth of their stock option, calculate scenarios, if possible, exercise their options, or do surrenders or buybacks if that's also an option as well. So we really manage the end-to-end process and make life a lot simpler. And then on the back end for companies, we provide a lot of reporting tools to help you do your accounting tasks or just general perspective on the ESOP program. In addition to that, we have value-added services that my colleague Barth will talk about as well, where we help you do the more detailed accounting support for Indian accounting standards. And that's backed with our partner firm, Veritas India, and they help you think about how to form your ESOP scheme, answer your common questions around how much equity is typical and like what customizations might be necessary for your particular company, if any. So they're a great resource there. And that bundle is a really good deal for startups because it helps with your year-end accounting work as well. And then secondly, the valuation exercises front, we help companies with that as well. So you can request a valuation exercise through the product and get that out of the way for regulatory reasons or ESOP valuation and accounting standards. On top of all of the financial tools, we offer these founder level tools to help you track your valuation, real data rooms that are comparable to an industry product like DocSend. So we support all the things you might see in DocSend, like view only PDF files or tracking access or watermarking documents. And then we also support investor updates to track which investors are actually looking at your updates and give you templates around what are good investor updates looking like. So you might be asking, how much does this all cost, and what what kind of value is it giving us? So our goal here was to deliver a product that offered the same level of value or better value than the US solutions for US companies. And so we've built this out to be very comparable to any other product you'd see in Silicon Valley. But we've designed this specifically for Indian companies as well as for US companies, but just to be a good standard for setting out equity management. And we're not charging for our software because we really want companies to use great cap table management software and help equity grants become industry norm and help set best practices there. We have the value-added services like the valuations and ESOP accounting that you can request optionally, but the base software is free. And as part of Mumbai FinTech Hub and working with EY, we have been able to extend it entirely for free for their portfolio companies. So it's definitely a great resource, and you should reach out to use it if these are problems that you've been running into. In terms of companies that have been using us, we've been used by companies of all sizes, mainly in the seed to A range, but also helping a bunch of companies with Series C and plus, where they're larger and they're running into all of the same problems we talked about. And our software has helped them out. And we support companies primarily in India, and in a few other cases, we're able to support you as well. So I want to stop there and just introduce everyone else on this call from our team. So I'm Samuk. I previously used to work at AngelList Venture, and I helped start AngelList India. I'm based in San Francisco and work with the rest of the AngelList team as well more closely. Sahil, who will take over the call from here, leads our customer success function and has previously worked for a bunch of SaaS companies in that role as well. And Bharat leads up strategic partnerships for us as well, and we'll be talking about our partnerships later on during this call. And he previously used to work at Carta, doing finance and strategy management there as well. So I'm going to stop there. If there are any questions that are in the Q&A, happy to answer them. If not, I think we'll hand it off to Sahil.
Thanks, Samuk. Hey, everybody. I'm just going to jump on and start with the product demo to just to give you an idea as to how everything looks like once you've gotten onboarded to the platform, and how you can take it from here. So this is how the dashboard looks like, and it's been entirely built with the idea to make it as simple as possible to to manage all your equity and cap tables and investor updates, data rooms, etc. So just to give you an idea into how equity management is done here, we have the option to manage both ESOP and SAR plans if you have any of them. You can manage a number of your plans here, see the details right here. Your scheme documents and grants are all uploaded here so that it becomes a single source of truth for you to access all kinds of information all from one place. You go into the grants, you can see we can manage individual grants separately here. Every employee can have multiple grants, and each of them can be handled individually. Your vesting schedule is all mapped out here. You can also use the tool to directly get the grant letters signed. To give you an idea, the system generates standard grant letters in a format like this. We do allow some formatting options right here in the form of content that you want to send out to your employees. To give you an idea, the e-sign flow when you send it to the employees, it looks something like this. This is where the employee comes in. They can see the details of their grants right here. We have answered a lot of FAQs right here just to give them an idea into what each of these terms look like, because it's really difficult to, if for somebody who's getting a grant for the first time, it becomes really important to understand all these terms. And a lot of your questions, a lot of the company's time that goes into explaining all of this can be saved through the tool itself. Right at this point, they get an option to either add a beneficiary which comes in the form like this, or they can just directly continue to review and sign. Once they do, we have partnered with SignEasy to take care of the e-sign process. It loads up the grant letter right here, and just a couple of clicks, they end up finishing the signing process. There we go. And once that is done, the employees get access to their dashboard almost instantly. And to give you an idea, this is how the employee dashboard ends up looking like. Now, every employee gets an individual dashboard, and they can access all of their grants right from here. The values are all shown here. There are, like, every value has an explanation mentioned right here as well, so that any confusion or doubts can be cleared. Employees can access our blog from right here as well. It contains a lot of information around how employee stock options really work in India and what all process do companies really follow. We have written a lot of content for founders as well to help them understand what kind of stock options should they choose for, and how to form employee aligned stock options in the company. Going back into the employee dashboard, right here, they can manage all the beneficiaries. There can be multiple beneficiaries. Every grant can have a different beneficiary attached to them as well. They get an options value calculator right here to play around with the values, see how much the value is supposed to grow with the growth in the company's size. Let me just open another dashboard which has actual values. All right, here we go. Now right here, they can view their grant information separately, access all the documents right here as well, raise a request to exercise options or surrender options from right here. And can check out their vesting schedule from right here as well. You move back. This is where the beneficiary information can be stored. Returning to the company dashboard, any form of exercise request or the surrender request that your employees raise can be accessed from right here in the dashboard, and approvals can be sent from right here. Any proceedings that happen after the accepting of an exercise request will need to be taken care of offline. We can also help you run any form of buyback programs, manage it end to end for you. In terms of reporting, we have various forms of reporting that you can access from right here. But if you need anything particular in terms of P&L purposes, accounting purposes, you need to raise a request to us, and we can generate that for you as well. As Sumukh previously mentioned, that it is a major problem when you have to create every grant individually and have it e-sign. While you can do that from here as well, but you can also create all the grants in bulk and have them signed from the company side in bulk as well, send it to the employees all in one go. So that saves up a lot of time for your HR team managing all of this. Moving on to the cap table section, think of this as moving on from messy spreadsheets to a better looking, more sophisticated system where you can manage things more easily. Things are interlinked, so you do not need to make a lot of changes everywhere. You make changes in one place and all of it starts reflecting in your cap table. As soon as you form your ESOP scheme on the dashboard, it will automatically show up on the cap table, and so on and so forth for your convertible instruments, your other share classes as well. This is how the fully diluted cap table will end up looking like. You can manage all of the share classes from right here. Your shareholder information can be managed from right here. Just like employees get an individual dashboard for themselves, you can also invite your investors to have a dashboard for them as well. It looks something like this. You can store the share certificates in here so that the shareholders can access the documents anytime they want. This is not as comprehensive as or not as comprehensive, but as descriptive as the employee dashboard, but it shows all the important information right here. Similarly, you can manage all the share certificates in here. Any share certificate that you store here and give access to the investors, they will be able to access it from the dashboard as well. Convertible debts, notes, warrants of any forms can also be stored in here. Similarly, you can track the valuations right here and see how your growth chart ends up looking like over the time with different valuations happening. You can get an export of the existing cap table on the dashboard from the export section. Simulations basically help you run scenario modeling on your cap table. This will be out very soon. We are currently working on this, but essentially think of a scenario where you have a couple of potential investors coming in, offering you 2 different deals, and you want to see which one will end up looking better on your cap table. You can run such simulations on your cap table beforehand, before making any decisions as to who to go with. Going forward, you can manage all your employee information right here. We have various termination options as well. When somebody gets terminated, there are plenty of reasons why they're getting terminated for, and different impacts on how their grant should get affected because of that. In case of disability and death, you can immediately vest all ESOPs and the system will take care of the rest of it. But if it's a regular resignation, then whatever's not vested automatically flows back to the ESOP pool, and whatever's vested remains vested. And you can also give access to the employees through their personal email IDs once they've gotten terminated. For example, if you look here, there are 2 different email IDs, and you can change the primary email ID to people's personal email ID once they have left the company, so that they can keep or they can maintain their visibility into their ESOP grants. To the investor section, it makes it very easy to keep a track of all the investor updates you send month on month, and it also makes it very easy on how to curate them. We have some standard templates already built in. You can add more templates and then keep on using them for every template as you want. To give you an example, choose a template from right here, click on next step, and you have a template showing up. You change the figures here, you change where you wish to. There are plenty of formatting options. We support charts, images, attachments up to 250 MB. So this makes it easier. You can curate mailing lists here as well. So just makes it easier or better than emails to send out monthly or quarterly updates to your investors. You can access all the financial services from here that Bharat will be talking about in a bit. You can raise valuation requests from within the dashboard itself. Talking about the data rooms, you can create confidential data rooms to share information with limited set of people. We have functionalities like limiting the visibility options, limiting visibility in terms of view only, edit or download access. You can also track everybody's activity here, so that in case ever there's a leak of data, there's a breach of data, you can always check from where it could have happened. You can also time limit somebody's access to the data room, make sure that the access gets revoked before a certain point in time, even if you forget doing that manually. There are a couple of document tools that we have. There's a PDF compression tool and a watermarking tool that you can use. And post that, there are various company permissions that you can give depending on the level of access you want a particular teammate to have. There are equity editors, HR managers, read-only access, and you can revoke access from somebody if they have left the company as well. You can store board member information and advisor information back here itself. The board member information can be stored in here. You can have different vesting templates for every grant if you want. There can be a unique vesting template for every individual grant if you wish for that. But we already provide you with some standard templates depending on the industry benchmarks. Action items are the same. Any pending requests from the employees are shown up here so that you can cater to them as soon as possible. You can store your all the company related documents right here. Again, just with the point of view to create this or to build this as a single source of truth for all the company related information. And that's about it. Another thing that I missed out on, which Sumukh already showed you, is the scheme document generator that we have. And you have plenty of options here that you can choose from, compare which scheme looks better for your company, and then choose amongst all of these. All right.
Great. Thanks, Sahil. We got a question on our on the Q&A, and someone asked us about our feedback and inputs on ESOP versus SAR programs, and I'd love to answer that now if that's good. So yeah, this is a good question. I think when you're making the choice about whether you do ESOP and SAR, there's a bunch of technical details about why you might want to do one versus the other in terms of how SAR might be treated more as a liability on your balance sheet. However, I'm going to go at a higher level and think about why you as a founder might want to choose to do SARs instead of option grants. And one of the reasons you might want to avoid option grants is that they come with this concept of exercise prices, which are actually capital that employee needs to pay up in order to actually exercise their stock. And then there is this problem of taxation that occurs, and it can be deferred in a few cases, but it's still a problem. And it's basically that you have double taxation that occurs on employees. So there's a few blog posts we can share with you on that front about that. But the reason you want a SAR is because SARs offer a simple sell to employees. They are actually a little bit worse in terms of how they're taxed for employees. But one thing we've realized over time is that more than super efficient tax treatment of their equity, employees really care about getting their equity at all. And with options, you run into a problem where it is the case that an employee could lose their options because they can't afford the exercise price plus the tax implications, or they forget to exercise and it fails past the exercise window. Now, of course, you can extend your exercise window to make that more feasible. But with the stock appreciation rights program, you essentially can avoid all of this, and you can make a stronger sell to employees to say, you get to keep your equity, and when we get liquid, you get to see some of that liquidity. An ESOP gives employees more flexibility around when they want to exercise and how they want to create their tax obligations. But I think the added complexity actually makes employees, especially employees who are not as sophisticated about seeing option grants as a form of compensation, more skeptical about the whole thing, because then they ask, oh wait, I have to pay you to get my stock, and then there's some extra bonus tax, which is still all questionable. And with the SAR, you can more simply say, listen, you'll just get liquidity when the time comes. Now, if you already have an ESOP program and you're trying to manage that, you can kind of do that by creating an unlimited exercise window post termination, and or effectively unlimited, and then offer buybacks. The exact legality of offering buybacks is still under question, but there are still ways to mitigate this. If you do decide to do an ESOP program, you're not stuck with that problem, but we found that it's a simpler sell to do SARs. One of the reasons companies have not been doing SARs in the past is there's been pushback from investors around alternative equity schemes, and sometimes investors like to see more traditional options programs, but nowadays you can more easily do a sell around SAR programs. So if I was starting a new company in India, I would use a phantom stock-like program and not options. But those decisions are up to you. my personal recommendation is to explore a SAR, and we have a sample SAR scheme template that you can explore. And if you want to dive deeper into that, we're happy to connect you with our specialists to dive deeper. All right, back to you, Sahil.
Right. So we're pretty much done with the product demo. Happy to take up any questions once Bharat has spoken, but handing it over to Bharat to speak about the various partnerships that we have and how that comes in handy, or what kind of services do we provide. So that over to you, Bharat.
Thanks, Sahil. Thanks, Sumit, for a great introduction, and thanks, Sahil, for the demo. Hi, folks. So I lead partnerships at EquityList and AngelList, and I basically primarily help companies provide the full suite of services associated with equity management that helps them grow. So to start off, as Sumit kind of previously touched on ESOPs, it's important to understand the design and implementation of any kind of stock-based compensation, be it in any form like ESOPs, restricted stock units, or special appreciation rights, is kind of paid enough attention to ensure that it is aligned in companies and employees' best interest. So to help that, to help early stage founders get off the ground, we have a free ESOP generator which is basically that helps companies with the design and implementation, and it has a scheme that is basically document. So the package actually comes with a scheme document and an example grant letter with the broad resolution document. So you guys can go on EquityList to kind of access that. We also have a special dedicated partnership with Veritas to offer a formation plan, which is basically suited for growth stage companies that kind of require assistance with designing and deploying, vanilla ESOPs for their team. They also kind of receive, generating ESOP documentation, identifying employees, and kind of creating an ESOP pool, which most of the founders, later down in Series B, regret that they kind of didn't kind of had a expert opinion on that. Along with that, we also have a compliance and legal support. So we have partnered with Bergen Law and Legal Heal team to kind of provide any support for ESOP, management or anything related to capital management. We also have partnered with CCV India to kind of provide, any merchant banker valuation or registered valuation that is required for companies to either, require an option valuation for tax purposes or an equity valuation for, figuring out the strike price or exercise price of the ESOP. So, you can actually go into the portal once you're onboarded. There's a request form that you can fill in with, specific questions that will help, the valuation team determine the best kind of valuation required at that point in time. And the typical pricing starts at 30,000 rupees for a registered valuer and around 50,000 INR for merchant bankers. Another, thing that we are kind of launching out at EquityList is our perks page, which would basically have a lot of vendors offering out discounted subscriptions, free credits for companies to kind of go from ground stage to growth stage. And so we have, we'll be launching that out in another, I think someone can actually tell them that, but I think we'll be pretty much launching out in another 2 weeks time from today. That would have offers over, INR 2 crores. So that's kind of a lot of credits for companies to explore and kind of benefit out of it. So we have partnered with cloud platforms like AWS, Google Cloud. We have, great ERP, CRM tools as well, through which, our partnered companies can actually take benefit out of it. But yeah, once we kind of go out live, we will roll out a newsletter for companies that have onboarded to understand more on those incentives and perks and the payment plans associated with it. So yeah, that's about the value-added services at ESOPs. If you have any question in terms of any partnership agreements that we have, feel free to drop me a line or send us an email at help@equitylist.com, and we'll take it forward from there. That's about the partnership. So any questions, please feel free to kind of type it out in the Q&A tab or ask us right here. Mm-hmm.
While people are asking, I'll share my perspective on this, is which I think the reason I'm working on equity management as a problem to solve, specifically in the scope of India, is I think this is one of the biggest flywheels of Silicon Valley, and why Silicon Valley is successful is that there are generous equity programs for employees and that people believe in it. And when people get liquidity, they come back and invest in other companies and they help grow the ecosystem. And so we think solving this correctly and bringing liquidity into this marketplace helps the overall ecosystem, and every startup founder plays a role in that, in helping build wealth for your employees, as well as helping you save time on something that isn't quite core to your business. We want to help bring our expertise there and help you grow your business and be your partners in growing your company. So that's our perspective from EquityList. Like Bart said, if you have questions, feel free to ping us, help@equitylist.co. If you want to sign up now and you're part of Mumbai FinTech Hub, feel free to go to EquityList, and during the sign up flow, just mention that you've been sent from Mumbai FinTech Hub as part of their portfolio if you're in there. And we'll hook you up with all the benefits and get you early access into our perks program as well. And if you want to use any one piece of EquityList, like maybe you just want the data tables and you already have a solution for your cap table, we can help work with you there as well. That's all I have. I'll hand it back to the folks at Mumbai FinTech Hub or EY.
Thank you so much, Sumukh, Bharat, and Sahil. That was really insightful. Thank you everyone for joining. And in case you have any queries for us and of course EquityList, please feel free to reach out and we'll redirect them to EquityList. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot for having us.